So, what you can see in this picture is a view of Rome from the top of the hill called the Gianicolo. Every day, precisely noon, they shoot a blank from the Gianicolo. Gianicolo was the place where, in 1849, the troops led by Garibaldi, the hero of Italian Risorgimento, which is the period in which Italy was unified, tried to resist the French troops, which brought the Pope back to Rome after the Pope had to leave Rome in a hurry because of a riot started in 1848. So Gianicolo is a symbolic place for the unification of Italy, also because in Rome, just before the arrival of the French, they approved the constitution of the Roman Republic, which modified is the basis of the present-day Italian constitution. Moreover, from the Gianicolo Hill, you can enjoy an amazing view of the city, as you can see in this picture. So in the foreground you have the downtown of Rome, with what English speakers call Wedding Cake, another very important monument to the unification of Italy, as it was dedicated to the first king of unified Italy, whom we call Victor Emmanuel II, not the first. So you might wonder why we have no Victor Emmanuel I, but our first king is called II. Well, the reason is, in his family there was not a Victor Emmanuel before him, and he didn't want to be called the first, out of respect for his ancestor. And so he decided to be called the second. So, the monument that you're looking at, the big white monument in the background, was dedicated to the first king of Italy after his death in 1878, and it was built between 1885 and 1911. Then, in the distance, looming in the distance, there is a hill, which is a volcano, and it's precisely where the Pope has his summer residence, a place called Castel Gandolfo. It's about 20 miles away, southeast of Rome. But starting with our presentation, so you can find here the key events and key figures. Now, these are the central dates for the unification of Italy, some of them, at least. 1815, when the Congress of Vienna, after the defeat of Napoleon, tries to put the clock backwards to before Napoleon Wars started, something which proved to be very difficult and eventually impossible. 1871 is when Rome is conquered, taken over by the Italian troops, and become capital city of Italy. 1918 is the last piece of the unification of Italy. After First World War, Italy receives what German-speaking people in Italy still call Sud Tirol, so the southern part of an Austrian region, and locals call Alto Adige, so the northern part of an Italian valley. Garibaldi was no doubt the most famous of the main characters acting in the unification of Italy. A war hero, something like somebody similar to your George Washington. He was a war hero, unlike George Washington, though he never had a main role in politics afterwards, but he largely contributed to the conquest, particularly of southern Italy. Garibaldi was the big name to put in, because all Italians knew him. He was sort of myth, legend. He was also one whom women liked a lot. He had 5 wives and 7 children. One of his wives, she was a 28 Brazilian girl, Anita. Anita was very jealous of him, so she followed him and she would fight in Rome on his side, and even though she had a little baby in her arms and she was pregnant of another one. So Garibaldi was the one who pursued some of the most important Italian victories during the unification. And if you go to the beautiful Risorgimento Museum, which is inside the big white building, the Wedding Cake, which you've seen before, you will even be able to see the jeans belonging to Garibaldi. Yeah, Garibaldi wrote Garibaldi wore denim. Reason is Garibaldi was from a city, Nice, which was very near Genoa. And people in the area of Genoa invented this kind of very resistant fabric called denim, which they used because they were working in the docks, and they were, as you know, because they were also used in the west of the United States, very resistant, very good for hard working people. Now, as the color was blue, they called the trousers blue from Genoa, the city. Blue jeans. This is where it comes from. Other three main characters. Giuseppe Mazzini, sort of philosopher who lived in exile. To be honest, King Victor Emmanuel would count Mazzini and Garibaldi almost as criminals. Strange ways. The two criminals, together with Vittorio Emanuele's Prime Minister Cavour, whom you see in the middle in this picture, were the ones who, working together, hating each other, made it possible for Italy to be unified. And that explains a lot about why Italian people still hate each other, in a way, but in some strange way they all contribute to advancing our country. Vittorio Emanuele, King of Piedmont, the most efficient region of Italy back then, and the one who led the movement of the unification, had big moustache. So long that his Prime Minister Cavour eventually convinced him of cutting them short like 3-inch or so, just before he was going to see Queen Victoria on an official meeting. He told his king that Queen would probably be frightened if she saw him that way. So we've already spoken about Napoleon and his importance in the history of Italy. Now, this is a map of Italy after 1815. As you can easily see, there is a large part of Italy, which I'm now pointing at, which was part of the Austrian Empire. Very important for Austria, not only for its wealth, but because it was its access to the sea. There you go. So present-day Lombardy and Venice, they belonged to Austria. This is Piedmont, which included large part of France. In the Piedmont court, people would speak French rather than Italian. And then a mix of states here in central Italy, a large, very large one, actually including most of central Italy, was the state of the Pope. Now we used to think of the Vatican as like always existing